my name's Lisa Stark. I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator with Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development. And we are in charge of managing the historic Poor Farm, which is a 160-acre farm in which we have our charitable education farm called Grow Johnson County. We grow 6 acres of organic vegetables and donate those to organizations throughout Johnson County. And we rely on a lot of volunteer support and really want to educate people about sustainable farming practices. And part of that sustainable farming practices includes habitat and combining farms with ecosystems. And so we've got this 15-acre prairie out here that we're going to be burning today.
So this is a county-owned property that in the last, I believe they started the initiative for this site in 2015 to basically provide some funding and assess the natural resources that were around this old farmstead. And so today what we're burning is a probably 3 to 4 year old prairie that the County Conservation Board planted. And this is the first burn that it's had since its planting.
The use of prescribed fire or controlled burns on prairies is a tool that we use to manage prairies in a modern environment where fire is typically controlled. Pre-European settlement, fire used to rage across the tall grass prairie, either because of lightning strikes, that kind of thing, or the indigenous populations learned how to use fire to kind of control and manage their environment. What we're doing, because we can't burn and there isn't natural fire sweeping through, is that there are methods for controlling a fire and doing it in a way that manages and benefits a prairie environment. And that could be that it's burning off the previous years or previous several years' growth to be of an advantage to forbs, flowers, pollinator kind of plants, and to kind of manage that balance between grasses and flowers in a prairie environment in what used to be the tall grass prairie across the state of Iowa.
So there's a lot of benefits to burning a prairie. It's one of the best management techniques that you can utilize. It allows kind of a blank slate to happen. You burn off all the dead vegetation. You burn off woody invasive species. It's a really good management tool for the health of the prairie. It blackens the soil, so it allows seeds to germinate much earlier. And the fire actually stimulates some of the forbs, some of the wildflowers, to produce more seeds, which is always a beneficial thing, to have more diversity out in the ecosystem.
At Impact 7G, I'm lucky as a burn boss to have folks with a lot of experience for the key positions that are needed to keep a burn efficient and safe. But we're always cycling in folks and getting them experience on the burn line so that they can fill those positions in the future. When we get ready to do a burn, there's always some pre-burn work that needs to be done. Chopping in some hand line, making some final adjustments to mow brakes. And then when we get the site ready to go, it's time to have our pre-burn meeting. At that time we go through rolls, we go through current and expected weather, and we look at objectives for the burn to make sure everybody's on the same page.
So this is actually my very first burn. I've been interning with Impact since January, but this is my first time actually being able to be out and be on the burn crew. So I'm earning a BA in environmental sciences, and then I'm also earning a nonprofit leadership and philanthropy certificate. And what I hope to do after school is honestly stuff similar like this. I hope to be able to go out in the field, but I also hope to be able to do evaluations and do research and learn about things that I care about within conservation, while at the same time being able to actually be out in the field.
So every burn starts with an anchor point. This is at the far downwind corner of the burn and is the most critical part of the burn as far as the safety of the overall burn goes. There's two types of burning on a burn typically, and that's the back burn and a head fire. Back burn is really good for slow removal of fuel and does the most ecological benefit often. Probably the two most critical positions on a burn are ignitions and holding. Ignitions, getting the fire on the ground, requires some understanding of fuel and how the fire behavior is going to react. And then holding is just like it sounds, keeping everything in check, making sure your fire isn't going where it shouldn't be.
So for this burn in particular, it's a very forb-dominant native vegetation, which has a few challenges. When you're providing ignitions, the forbs tend to carry fire not as sufficiently as a native tallgrass prairie with big blue stem Indian grass dominant. And so what we ended up having to do was put in a lot of ignitions, a lot of interior ignitions, a lot of stripping of the fire to make sure that we could fill in our burn breaks. And then as we moved around the site, we hit sections that have substantially different vegetation. So reed canary grass swales, some tall grass, prairie grasses, and within those areas you see the fire activity pick up considerably. We established an anchor point in the northwest corner of the site, and then essentially we have two burn crews that are operating simultaneously. We had the north burn crew, which was lined by Chant, and then the south burn crew, which was lined by myself. And we essentially just work in tandem starting from our anchor point and just work, one crew along the top of the slope and then my crew on the bottom, along the bottom of the slope, to just work in tandem to make sure that the area burns out without sending too much head fire from one end to the other. And then the last part of the burn, basically you pull your two lines together, ringing the burn off to complete the burn. And now we are in what's called the mop-up stage, where we've essentially finished all of our primary ignitions, and now we're just ensuring that the site is safe before we leave it at the end of the day.
The burn started off according to plan, and everything overall went really well. We did have a few spot fires towards the end as we shifted around a corner and had a little bit more of a headwind. And this is to be expected on these types of burns. Every burn is different, so it's great to bring your crew together at the end of the burn and discuss how things went, what happened, what was expected, what was unexpected. It's a great educational opportunity, especially for younger staff.
With native prairie grasses, fire used to be a normal part of the landscape. Lightning strikes, intentionally set fires. A lot of native prairie species are actually adapted to those kind of disturbances. And so if you go without managing a prairie at all, just let it kind of do its own thing, what you'll eventually have happen is you'll have shrubs establish, and then those shrubs will shade out your native prairie species, which prevents burning in those areas. And then those shrubs will eventually turn into early successional trees, and then eventually late stage forest, over the course of 200, 300 years. And so this natural disturbance, the prescribed fire in this instance, helps to keep those native plants established and prevents invasion from, even native shrubs, invasive shrubs, invasive herbaceous species, and it allows a greater diversity of native species to establish within the area.